Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of A Pile of Shame, the Backlog Logs, the GOG chapters. Today we take a look at the beloved classic Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, and yes, that is the full name of this game. Released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64, this game was developed by good old LucasArts and published by Nintendo, and Gradiente, a Brazilian company of all things. The PC port I played now was published also by Aspire Media. I bought this game in November of 2024, staying on the pile a little over a year. I have a history with this game, at least with the Nintendo 64 version of it. I was in middle school at the time and my friend and neighbor had the game, or so I remember. We would play a lot when I came over to his place, but we usually stayed with the classic initial roster and the first cup. I may misremember this, so it could have been that we rented it often. And it being a rental, save games never stayed up long enough for significant progress to be made. I played mostly on the first cup tracks and had a lot of fun watching the pods spin around and blow up. Good times. Very good times. However, after finally playing it on my own, owning the game, I'm glad I never asked my father to buy the one for the N64. Don't get me wrong, the game itself is not bad at all. Far from it, it's really good. At least this version is nice. The handling of the pods is dreamlike, with very sensitive controls and very responsive commands. The tracks have a nice challenge ramping up. The classic Star Wars soundtrack in the background is everything you hope for, which I will probably have to mute for copyright reasons, also because I have already had issues with the mouse in the past. The sound effects are very cool. It's a really great racing game. Except, it's so dang short it's not even funny. I started out playing with Anakin, who is the most balanced of the initial choices you have for the game. Eventually I had to buy new parts for my pod to be able to keep up. Then, after some issues with the track and not having enough funds to improve my initial pod, I decided to switch pods and found that one of the earliest pods you get is the only pod you'll need for the rest of the game. It became all too easy. This particular pod is faster, boosts longer, vents heat quicker, turns better, was overall a huge improvement. And once I beat a few more races, got a little more cash and improved it a little bit more, it was even easier. I should have saved the initial winnings to improve that pod as soon as possible, but I didn't know better. However, let's take one step at a time in this, otherwise it's going to be the shortest possible log of this series. The PC version differs from the N64 mostly in two ways. The initial setup and menus, which you have to choose, single player, multiplayer, options, settings, stuff like that. And also FMV cutscenes, which unfortunately don't really work. The sound is gone, so whatever they were doing, they no longer work properly on PC. I don't know what people are saying. They're probably introducing each track, talking about the things of the planet, but I'm gonna have to guess here. Now the first thing you should do every time you open the game is to set up your controller if you're using one, and you should because it's much better. Every time you close the game, it resets the settings for the controller, and if you just try jumping into a match quickly, nothing is going to work correctly. And then you can go to the races. Pick your profile, your pilot/pod, and choose the track. Only the first track is open immediately, and you have to beat each track to unlock the next one. There are 3 cups, so to speak, each cup with about 7 races, and there is one extra special cup with only 4 tracks. Those tracks are the longest, hardest tracks in the entire game. I still have to beat one of those. Usually, the tracks are quite broad and give you enough room to maneuver, but some areas in each track are actually very difficult to navigate because they become narrow and curves become deadly as a result. As the difficulty ramps up, so do the deadly turns, falls into nothing, road hazards, and tiny apertures that you have to squeeze through. It all becomes very exciting very quickly. Your pod has a variety of functions. The usual acceleration and braking, of course. You can also use a button to slide, which kinda makes turning easier. You can tilt your pod vertically to squeeze through narrow spaces, but it's not as needed as I remembered. You can also boost your pod, but that overheats it and can cause a fire, which then leads to damage and you eventually explode. Exploding is not the end of the race, however, as you get respawn and can continue on, but with a massive disadvantage in speed, as most pods require a considerable amount of time to reach top speed. You can also repair your pod mid-race to avoid blowing it up. As you slam around on the track walls and other racers, the engines will get damaged, but you can fix them as you go. This, however, can become a bigger issue. Slamming too often during races can cause certain parts to be damaged and not function properly. This takes us to the management part of the game. After you have selected the track you'll be racing on, you get a simple menu with a few options. You can inspect your vehicle, which does nothing useful, but you can check out your pod in detail, as much as those old polygons can show. You can check the pod's parts to see their integrity and if they're still working properly. You can buy new parts, you can buy used parts in the junkyard, and you can buy pit droids. Do you remember those hilarious little squeaky droids from episode 1? Yeah, those silly little things. Those are the first thing you should get because they repair damaged parts between races and can make a big difference overall. And that's pretty much it. I was overly excited about this game when I was young, mostly because it was so much fun to race with other people with more or less the same level of pods. But playing it alone proved to be more a test of patience than anything else. Everything is quite superficial. Once you get the hang of a track, beating it and its record time is kind of a joke. Shortcuts are so darn easy to use and cut such a massive amount of the track in some places that winning becomes trivial. The other racers rarely get ahead of you, and they often pose little to no threat if your pod is on par with theirs. Sometimes I would even see other racers just slamming against walls every single lap. The graphics are god-awful for today's standard, but I can imagine back then it was the bee's knees, Grandpa. Still, it is a fun little game, a distraction if you will. Some tracks can be quick and easy, taking about 2 minutes, but the longer, more complex tracks can eat up to 10 minutes or more if you can't fly properly. Which is my case in that one goddamn track of the Special Cup. At the end of the day, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is a fun little game that is just going to get demolished by the recently announced Star Wars Galactic Racer, which will definitely look better, play better, have a lot more tracks, and apparently new vehicles. Hopefully. I'm looking forward to that one. If you enjoyed this as a youngling or just want more Star Wars game, this one is good for a short time every now and then. I'm not sure if everyone will like it, but take this into consideration. I hate racing games. Loathe them. But I love me some Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.
Crispa!
I can run faster than your pod racer.